It could really go either way. My sense is less that people have probably soured on Harris. I think it would be more the enthusiasm might have dipped, the initial enthusiasm, right? She's a new candidate. It shakes up the race. People are excited. So favorability ratings might tick up a little bit there. And now that the race has settled a bit, they've reverted back to, for lack of a better term, sort of the normal state. So I'm not terribly surprised by it, but I think the movement is pretty small. And again, still within the margin of error. So, I think if you're the Harris campaign, you wish you were further ahead, right? Particularly given how polling was and how different polling was compared to turnout in 2016 and 2020, but they probably feel pretty okay.
Okay, help me on this one. Now, the poll says that more voters say that they saw Trump as a danger to the country, 48% to 43% for Harris. Yet, again, when asked if the elections were held today, how would you vote? Trump gains that narrow advantage. So a majority agreed that Trump is a danger, but then they also think that he will be good for president, giving him that narrow lead that we've been talking about. How does this really add up, these contradictory views?
It's a great question. I think one that political scientists will be studying for a long time. I think the phenomenon is likely that although people see Donald Trump as a potential danger, a potential threat, they're not convinced that that threat will materialize. In other words, they look back on on Trump's previous term and said, we survived, right? This guy we thought was dangerous then, but we survived that time around. People don't necessarily like his plans for mass deportation, the threat of Project 2025 and things of that nature, but they don't believe that Trump will be able to do it. And I think that's probably explaining much of the disconnect. They do see him as a potential threat, a greater threat than Harris would be, but they're not confident that that threat will materialize. And I think that's why you're getting some of the disconnect.
Okay. All right. Flavio, we want your reaction on some more stories, so stay with us. We'll come to you in just a few minutes. Now, in the final days to the elections, Kamala Harris has participated in a CNN town hall near Philadelphia. In battleground state Pennsylvania, Donald Trump campaigned in Georgia. While Harris continued to slam Trump, calling him unstable and unfit to serve, she also further distanced herself from Biden. Harris is promising a new generation of leadership if elected. Meanwhile, Trump embraced an old and somewhat old MAGA chant at his Georgia rally. Crowds welcomed him with shouts of "Daddy's home." Now, in other news, it seems fresh trouble could await Tesla CEO Elon Musk after a warning from the US Justice Department. Musk, who has endorsed support behind former President Trump, has publicized a $1 million prize to increase voter registrations in hotly contested swing states. Federal law bars paying people to register to vote.
Every day from now until the election, we're giving out a $1 million prize. And all you have to do is sign a petition in support of the Constitution.
The world's richest man, Elon Musk, known for pushing boundaries, is now testing the limits of US election laws.
You're most welcome.
His super PAC, America PAC, is offering $1 million a day in a lottery-style giveaway to registered voters in key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan.
The only reason we can now send American astronauts.
The lottery has one major condition. You must be a registered voter in one of the 7 battleground states and sign a petition supporting free speech and the right to bear arms. But critics, including legal experts, say the move could break federal laws that prohibit people paying to vote or register.
You believe in the Constitution, which if you already believe in the Constitution, you're just signing something you already believe, and you can win $1 million. That's awesome.
The Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, which investigates election-related offenses, has now stepped in. According to reports, they have sent a letter to Musk warning that the lottery may be illegal. The department is specifically concerned about potential violations of election law, specifically a ban on offering incentives to voters. Contest winners not only receive a cash prize but are also asked to speak publicly in favor of free speech and gun rights, making this more than just a simple lottery.
I mean, I truly believe everything you're doing, truly, you don't need to be doing it. I know a lot of us feel the same way. Your wealth and responsibility you are using to save speech, and we just all appreciate it. We really do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Justice Department hasn't taken any formal action yet, but pressure is mounting from former prosecutors and watchdog groups who are calling for a thorough investigation. Meanwhile, Musk remains undeterred, continuing to hold town halls and pushing his message. For now, the $1 million daily giveaway continues, but whether it crosses legal boundaries is a question the DOJ will have an answer to soon. Ridhima Kedia for NDTV.
Flavio Hickel from Washington College still with us. Flavio, you heard that there now 3 voters in Pennsylvania and 1 in North Carolina have been awarded those $1 million checks. What's going to happen to those millionaires, given it might be just a matter of time before the Justice Department clamps down? They best return the checks, would you say?
I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't return the check, right? But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure how that particular part of it plays out. My understanding is that this is sort of a warning letter. The hope is, I think, that from the Justice Department is that Musk will change his behavior, that you've been formally warned that this does potentially run afoul of these laws. So I think they're hoping that these checks stop going out. My sense would be that Musk is unlikely to stop doing this. So we'll have to see, post-election in all likelihood, if any action is taken. I think that depends in large part about who gets elected, right?
Okay. Flavio, now in 2010, the Justice Department, as you would remember, issued a warning to then owner of World Wrestling Entertainment for giving free WWE clothing. U.S. officials said it was a federal offense to offer to pay an individual a thing of value for voting. This, of course, we're talking here about $1 million. Do you think that we're going to see just a warning here or perhaps a lawsuit? What's your sense here?
I think right now it's a warning because it's so volatile. The Department of Justice is going to be very wary of launching a formal investigation or bringing charges within 2 weeks in time of the election. I do think the Department of Justice will be interested in investigating this. And at the risk of perhaps boring some of your viewers with some history, I'll just point out that much of the 19th century in American politics was dominated with a battle to eliminate what we call machine politics or money in politics, people buying votes or paying people to vote for a particular party, that a lot of our energy was devoted towards eliminating creating a proper civil service, meaning that you didn't just have political appointees running the government. And it's interesting to me, what I take away from the story is that what Musk is doing here and what Trump is purported to do with Project 2025 both really attack those critical changes that we've made in our politics since the 1800s, right? So that's, I think, the stakes involved, and I think the Department of Justice recognized they need to address it.
Appreciate you putting that into that, giving us that historical context. Sorry to cut you off there, Flavio. We have to leave it there, running out of time. Flavio Hickel, he is Assistant Professor of Political Science at Washington College. Thanks again. Now, a New Times YouGov poll has found that 1 in 4 Americans fear a civil war could break out following the presidential election. According to the poll, which surveyed bipartisan voters, 27% say that they fear violence is very or somewhat likely after ballots are cast. The sentiment about violence following the election comes after hundreds of Trump supporters, as you might remember, stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 in an effort to delay the ratification of Joe Biden's victory. Now, for more on this story, we are joined by Rich Logan. He's Florida co-chair of Republicans for Harris. We're also joined by Anand Ahuja. He is a lawyer and co-founder of Indian Americans for Trump. And let's get to you, Anand, first. What's your reaction to the... Actually, I understand that we don't have Anand at this point in time, so I'm just going to throw that question instead, of course, to we'll put it to Rich. Rich, what's your initial reaction to this poll from YouGov?
So thank you for having me. It's my first time here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Let me just say first to viewers, I do want to apologize to them for being someone who helped Donald Trump divide our country, as someone who's a former MAGA activist and pundit and volunteer. I think what the insurrection did show is that while most Americans are not violent, and I don't believe that they will commit acts of violence in November, it only takes a few people to create the kind of anarchy that we saw at January 6th. And I think that violence, it would not be relegated just to our nation's capital. I think it would be in numerous state capitals as well. And if anything like that does happen, that is going to be the sole accountability and culpability of the Republican Party and Donald Trump, because they are the ones who have deemed it as acceptable avoidable deaths and suffering, and they have defended and justified politically motivated violence if it helps them. In fact, this is one of the reasons why I left MAGA after several years in the community.
Right, Rich.
And the Republican Party is on the wrong side of life and death issues.
Okay, we have managed to establish that connection with Anand Ahuja, who is with Indian Americans for Trump. Now, Anand, we've been talking about this poll about people fearing a civil war after ballots are counted. What's your reaction to that poll? It's kind of unimaginable that we're talking about civil war in 2024. You could dismiss it as perhaps it's some kind of fear-mongering from the left, but these are Americans, bipartisan Americans, saying that this is actually a serious worry. What do you have to say to that?
Okay, I look into this from two angles. Number one, there is no doubt that there is a big division amongst Americans with respect to this presidential election. Either people, they are pro-Trump or they are anti-Trump. So there's no doubt about that at this particular moment, there is a big divide amongst Americans. After having said that, I personally believe that Americans are matured enough, and as far as the civil war is concerned, I consider it totally out of question because of a couple of reasons. Number one, we have learned, rightly or wrongly, whatever happened on January 6th, that is a big eye-opener that in America, this kind of activities are not going to be permitted. So irrespective of who wins the election, especially I'm talking about if Kamala Harris wins the election, I doubt it very much on the part of Trump supporters to again engage in the activity. They engage in the activity on January 6th. I don't know to what extent Democrats are going to accept Donald Trump as president again, because last time there were a couple of two impeachments were there, and Democrats practically never accepted Donald Trump as president of the country. I personally cannot speak on behalf of
Anand, we're talking about
again,
violence here, but let me now try and get in Ray Locker. He's a political analyst and also a journalist. He's with us on the panel as well. Ray, what do you think? If you don't likely agree with this doomsday scenario, say, of civil war, do you think that we would see some amount of violence? We're already seeing this in that those assassination attempts on Trump. Recently, an Arizona man yesterday was arrested for terrorism charges for 3 shooting incidents at a Democratic campaign office in Phoenix. So how do you perceive these dangers?
I don't blame people for fearing that there might be a civil war. We had an insurrection on January 6, 2021, where people stormed the Capitol. And by the way, they were wearing Trump paraphernalia. They weren't Antifa. It wasn't some AI deepfake. It was real. And who do you see walking around carrying assault weapons and weapons all the time? They're not Democrats. They're people who go to Trump rallies. They're people who espouse what he believes. So yeah, if I'm watching that, I'm worried about it. And so it's totally understandable that people would feel that way. And Trump was impeached not because Democrats didn't accept him as president. It's because he broke the law. He tried to bribe Vladimir Zelensky to attack Biden, and he was going to withhold arms for that. And then he fomented the January 6th insurrection. And a number of Republicans, not enough, but a number of Republicans voted to convict him. So it's totally understandable that people feel that way.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We'll have to leave it there for now. Ray, Anand, and Rich also joining us. Sorry, Anand, running out of time here. We'll try and get you back before November 5th to get some more reaction from you. In other news now, Iranian government-linked hackers have researched and probed election-related websites in multiple US swing states. That's according to a report by Microsoft. Iran's move is an attempt to discover vulnerabilities that could be used to influence the presidential election. The group has allegedly tried to stoke discord during the 2024 election through hacking activity targeting the Trump campaign and by encouraging protests of US policy towards Israel. This is the latest report in a series of warnings coming from both tech companies and US security agencies. Let's now turn our attention to a critical swing state. Arizona has long been a Republican stronghold, but in 2020, President Joe Biden flipped Arizona by fewer than 11,000 votes. That margin of victory for Biden was the closest compared to any other state. And how about this? Biden is only the second Democratic presidential candidate since the 1960s to claim victory in Arizona. There are, of course, no guarantees that Kamala Harris will be able to do the same this time around. As we've been hearing, Harris and Trump both remain locked in a dead heat. We're now joined by Priya Sundaresan. She is a state senator from Arizona, which means she serves her district at the state level. She is a Democrat in the state Senate that is controlled by the Republicans. Senator, thank you very much for joining us this morning here. Senator Sundaresan, the border is a key issue on voters' minds in Arizona, as you well know. Arizona, of course, shares that border with Mexico. In December last year, the border arrests that we saw in the US hit nearly 250,000, the most ever recorded in a single month. Now, granted, yes, I know those numbers have drastically dropped, but many voters still fear that illegal border crossings would only increase if Harris becomes president. What would you say to them?
I think that certainly the fear is there. That fear is largely manufactured, I think, by the right-wing media, because our borders are pretty quiet. I mean, there are certainly areas where there are lots of border crossings, but as Vice President, Kamala Harris has recently even come to Arizona to announce investments in the port of entries. And I think really what's important to underscore here is that migrants, people who are coming from other countries, are not bringing crime with them, as the right would claim. There's certainly an issue with illegal drugs and fentanyl that's coming across the border, but that is largely coming through the ports of entry, coming from U.S. citizens who are bringing those across. I think it's important to decouple the fear and stigma that they're trying to create with immigrants. Especially because right now the people who are coming across the border, that's been true for a long time, but a lot of them are fleeing circumstances in their own country and simply seeking a better life. And what we're seeing in the people coming across the border now is they're not limited to Mexico or even Latin America. We see a lot of immigrants who are coming from countries like India because it highlights the brokenness of the federal immigration laws that have really created the backlog for immigrants from countries like, my parents where my parents came from. So I think it's a nuanced conversation. A lot of that nuance
India
gets lost.
and China as well.
Yeah, and from Tucson. I live in Tucson. I'm here in
Okay.
Tucson. It's
Sorry,
very
lots to get through. So let me get to the next question here.
Sure.
As we mentioned earlier, Senator, Biden won Arizona by less than 11,000 votes. Arizona became a hotbed of conspiracy theories after Donald Trump spread those lies about the election being stolen, votes not being correctly counted. Now, 11 days away from the election headquarters in Arizona has armed guards, metal detectors, police snipers. Give us a sense, really, of the fears and the worries just days ahead of the election. How are you feeling?
So I'm feeling fairly good. Elections in Arizona are conducted safely and securely. We have so many options to vote, including vote from home, by mail, and early voting has been going on since the beginning of the month. So it has gone well. It's gone smoothly. It will continue to go smoothly. I think those precautions, though, that the Secretary of State has had to take are real, and we know that Donald Trump and his supporters and all of the election deniers are latching on to these election fraud lies because they know that they may lose. And so they want to be able to create a kind of
Okay.
environment where if they create those lies again, that they might have a stronghold. But I think the message that I would like to share is that our elections are safe and secure in Arizona. There are so many checks and balances in the process that ensure that only legal votes
Okay.
are counted.
Senator Sundaresan, what's it looking like for Indian American voters with that South Asian heritage? What is topmost on mind for these voters in the swing state of Arizona?
Well, I can tell you that because I have been participating in a group called South Asians for Harris, South Asian American voters. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm seeing someone who is in line to be president of the United States. She's been vice president and now potentially president of the United States, someone who shares our cultural heritage and our identity. So much excitement has just come out of the woodwork. South Asian Indian Americans are being mobilized and engaged like they never have before and excited to participate,
What's the top issue,
conducting
though? Is
phone
it the
calls to
economy?
other voters. Sorry?
Is it the economy that's the top issue for South Asians?
Yeah, I mean, beyond also sharing that issue, I think, yeah, economy, of course, is an important issue for South Asian Americans. I also know abortion and
Okay.
reproductive freedom is top of mind for South Asian Americans. And so on both issues, actually, it's very clear that Kamala
All right.
Harris is the top candidate. We know that Wall Street Journal and many other, Goldman Sachs and other financial firms have predicted
Right.
a worse economy under Trump. And on reproductive freedoms, we know that it's Donald Trump who installed the Supreme Court justices that led to the abortion bans and restrictions we're seeing
State
across the states.
Senator Priya Sundaresan from Arizona. Sorry to cut you off there. We're really running out of time. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV World. Really appreciate it. That's it for US Election Watch. I'm Allister D'Souza in Washington, D.C.
Right now, terrible things are happening to donkeys. They work all day in the blistering sun, without food or water. They're suffering silently, while their backs are breaking. Some are being abandoned and will be left to die alone. A donkey sanctuary, because terrible things are happening to donkeys. Please, do something incredible for them right now.
You could lock in a fixed energy deal now and take the power back. Switch and save at uswitch.com.
I'm so grateful. Without your help, we couldn't have got through the past year. So it's important to say a proper thank you. It happened so fast. We thought he had a bug, but it was meningitis. He was critically ill, fading fast, and we faced a daunting 3-hour journey to reach specialist help. But your critical care children's ambulance got him there safely. His mum and dad stayed with him every day, and your accommodation kept them together. You helped them through the worst of times. It's a miracle But he survived, thanks to our amazing NHS and life-saving support from NHS charities. And that's why I'm writing a forever thank you into my will.
Search Forever Thank You to find out how to write a gift into your will to an NHS charity to help them support the NHS to do more for patients, staff and communities for years to come.
Make this Diwali royal with Royal Sweets. Enjoy authentic traditional sweets with your family. Order online at royalsweets.co.uk.
This is the MSF hospital you can help build. This is the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is the doctor you can help train using the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is the medicine you can help supply, given by the doctor you can help train using the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. These are the patients you help survive, treated with the medicine you help supply, given by the doctor you help train, using the equipment you help buy in the hospital you can help build. These are the lives you help rebuild, the patients you help survive, treated with the medicine you help supply, given by the doctor you help train, using the equipment you help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is help that lasts. With regular donations, you help us provide long-term medical care. Please donate £10 a month by searching MSF Now. That's MSF Now.
Declared persona non grata by what has been a friendly partner nation, in this case Canada. We're very privileged to have him back in the NDTV studio, or in the NDTV studio, and glad that he's back in the country. Thank you very much for being with us. This all has to do with several allegations which have been made by the Canadians about the death of a person we consider a terrorist, Nijjar. We'll talk about Canada's concerns and what they've said, but I think the point that really has to be made is that we have at least 26 people who we want extradited from Canada. These are people we believe to have been associated with terrorism or are terrorists. Why has Canada denied us those requests?
In most of the cases, I feel there is an inaction on the Canadian side. In some cases, of course, they have sought some more details or sought some clarifications. And we are quite okay with that, because after all, we have two different legal systems. And if we want their legal system to act on our behalf, we need to give them the information that they wanted. From our perspective, it had gone through a due process, and therefore all the evidences that we had already been presented to them in the 26 extradition cases which we just talked about. But in addition to extradition, there are many arrest requests also painted. And unfortunately, we have not seen much of action from the Canadian authorities in this particular case for almost last 1 decade.